That's a Star Trek.
Welcome everyone to Star Trek Trek, our ongoing journey through the episodes of our favourite science fiction series. This episode we are on to Voyager's season 1.
Our second favorite science fiction series.
A second, okay. Season 1, episode 7. Don't know where you're going with that. Oh, I know where you're going with that.
Twilight Zone.
Watching the Twilight. Oh, I don't know if I can make that distinction yet.
Well, you haven't seen them all though.
That's true. Even the bad ones, especially the bad ones.
Yeah.
Ex post facto was the episode we watched. Mr. Paris gets in a little bit of trouble doing his usual shenanigans, and Tuvok has to bail him out through use of mind melds and small energetic dogs. Gentlemen, what do we think about this episode? How was this film noir enough for you?
Yeah, I did see that term get thrown around a few times in the various web pages associated with this episode. I didn't know I'd call it that. It was more of a whodunit, right? And Tuvok gets to be the Data as Sherlock Holmes this episode, and it's fine, But I think that everybody got to do their jobs well. I was proud to see Neelix actually used effectively, and the captain, bringing everybody together and giving them all something to do and trusting her crew. And I was really impressed also by just the direction of the episode. It took the time to establish the characters a little bit and let them flow, but also when the pace quickened a bit towards the end. I think credit to LeVar Burton. He really just kind of knows what to do and when to drop all the tricks and the cinematics and just let the story play out. And that really was interesting too. I enjoyed it. I'd never seen it before, so it was a surprise to me. What's that? Right. Yeah.
Wow.
He's a Voyager virgin.
Oh, yeah. That's how I'm introducing you next time.
I've seen him here and there. Back. So Voyager was out when I was in, I guess, high school. Yeah, and so it was on television. There, it wasn't in syndication yet. So if you missed one, you missed it, and that was that. You couldn't just pull it up on streaming or whatever. So yeah, my experience with early Voyager is spotty. It wasn't until, and I ashamed to admit it, but in college I had a thing for Jerry Ryan, so I didn't miss a whole lot of episodes when she was on.
You and Stars both, which by the way, it's wonderful that she can kind of span the spectrum like that.
Right.
You said it wasn't very film noir. I kind of, the mystery wasn't, but there were some definite dialogue choices, especially between Paris and the lady whose name I've forgotten now. Ren? No, not Ren. Anyway, that was very much sort of like, she's there with her long cigarettes, he's there in the rain, and it's all very sort of, I was walking down the lonely streets on a dusky night and I met this woman. It's very kind of expository, even with the black and white opener with the crime scene at the start was very gripping.
Liddell was her name. Chuck Liddell.
Chuck Liddell.
Yeah. The former heavyweight champion of the
UFC.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you mentioned, you called it out when we were watching. They get this really cheesy, like Casablanca dialogue between Stimpy and Paris. And sorry, I'm going to keep using that one. And then it's getting a little bit, all right, we've heard this in a dozen other shows. And then they cut right back to the black and white. All right, his sentence is, or his punishment is triggering again. And like you said, LeVar knows when to move it along. And so the pacing was far superior to Dax, the last courtroom episode that we watched. You can find that review on this channel. So the pacing was better, and they switch between the film noir styling, the black and white. The dialogue is very of the era as well. But then you get quality sci-fi stuff too, with the stuff on the bridge and the little trick with the shuttlecraft and whatever explosives
the Corbomite maneuver.
Invented. Yeah. A little bit of the bluffing, and then we get this third angle with which is sort of tied in with the Clue / Agatha Christie stylings of get everyone in the room and I've figured it out and here's how it went down. And so they mesh a lot of styles here, and it actually works better than my memory. I think my memory stuck out the kind of cheesy dialogue, but it's a little more charming on this rewatch, I found.
I think it's sort of it had a lot going for it. I mean, there was a lot going on in this episode. Obviously you had the murder mystery, you had a little bit of play, like how can we use all our characters this episode? So, the Doctor got a little bit to do, Kes got a little bit to do, and there was a nice moment at the start of the episode between Kes and the Doctor where they're talking about his sentience, and that's like a whole conversation by itself.
It was like a 60-second shot too.
Yeah,
it was a long take.
A big long pan. I should mention as well, which we haven't already. Story was done by Carlos Summers, who also did DS9, 3 DS9 stories: Battle Lines, which is the Cairo Pucker one, Melora, and Meridian, which I think is one of the also other forgetful
lowest
ones.
rated.
And directed by, as you already mentioned, LeVar Burton, who's some guy. Who knows? But yeah, no, this had a lot going on for it because you also had like there was sort of allusions to a civil war on this planet, or a war between the bird people and the Numeri. They were mentioned as little being, they're entering a war zone. That's why he had Neelix's local knowledge, who actually he got some good use in this episode. He wasn't just kind of the comic foil; he was being used as intended, which was quite nice to see.
Well, he was a little bit of comedy,
A little bit,
where he made that dumb joke like, I turn the other way and run, and then he does a very, comedic laugh where he stops himself and clears his throat. But it was fine. For the tension of this episode to remain high, and Dennis McCarthy said he was working overtime trying to set the mood with the music. For that tension to remain high, you can't have too much comedy or it would distract itself from itself. So they had a couple beats, but otherwise it was pretty much a similar in tone, which I think was a good thing.
Yeah. Just on the music, because like you said, Dennis McCarthy, he said, just a quote from Memory Alpha, he invested a lot of energy in the episode, even more than he had done for Star Trek Generations. He commented, I even worked harder on ex post facto than I did on the movie. I mean, that episode was a murder trial with a dog as a surprise witness. I really had to sell that. Which I think is like, it's going to be my part at the end, that the part I don't like about this episode is probably, it is a little bit too camp for what it set up. It is a kind of it did do the Agatha Christie
whole
thing.
episode was camp.
I know, but it was almost like it was very much someone had read an Agatha Christie novel and just went, I'm going to do this, but with Tuvok, and that's kind of like, yeah, but maybe no.
Tuvok and his brother Threvok, who replaced him at the tactical console when he left the bridge. That was hilarious. Actually, funny you mentioned that because it makes me think of Trouble with Tribbles, where the smoking gun was the Tribble reacting to the undercover Klingon. Yeah. So that is actually pretty similar.
Very similar. We also had Paris being a bit of a sleazebag in this episode. We've had 2 episodes of people being sleazebags. He was a very much like, I'm bored, I'm just going to go creep on this lady a little bit. And yeah, she ends up using him for a plot, which, moral of the story, don't creep up on women unless you want to be used as part of an intergalactic plot to exchange weapons technology. Just saying.
So, this is episode 8.
7.
All right, so... Well, it says, I guess because of the caretaker. So this is week 8 we're seeing this character. They plucked him out of a penal colony. So, how squeaky clean do you want the guy to be, really? And so he is scummy. I find his characterization kind of all over the place because there's moments, I've been watching through season 5, there's moments where he's very callous and unfeeling. He talks about Borg drones being blown up. Oh, I wish I could see the look on their face. They're just mindless automatons. And it's like, well, do you value alien life or not? And then, like a couple episodes later or before, I forget, he's giving this heartfelt speech to the Doctor and his holographic family, and he has a lot of good insight there. So it feels like his characterization is odd to me because anytime you want to draw him to be a scumbag, that fits because he has a rough background. He comes from prison. And I think, did he wash out of the academy? But he's not a great guy. But on the other hand, you see these really tender, emotional, bright, understanding moments from him. And so I have a hard time kind of getting a handle on his character. I don't know if I love these kind of moments. It is sleazy. You're not supposed to like that he did that, but it is understandable, especially this early in the season.
I think it's interesting that we start. So one of the things that really disappeared quickly was the Maquis versus the Federation on the crew here, and so we actually get a beat here where at the end of the episode he's bridging that gap a little bit with Tuvok, which is nice. So just to back up because maybe I don't remember the first season. Tuvok was Federation, right? He was not Maquis
Yeah, yeah.
because I know we have a
He was the
Maquis
spy
Tuvok
and caretaker.
in
Yeah, he
timelines.
was
Oh, I see.
undercover with
Okay,
the Maquis, and
I
so
see. I see. All
Chakotay
right.
feels a little bit betrayed by him.
But only for
All
like
right.
10 minutes, and then they're best buds.
Okay.
We do get a little bit of Chakotay's Marquis energy here, don't we, with his tactics when they're in the firefight with the new Mary. And like I kind of like the interplay between Chakotay and Janeway, which is like, well, you can't use that Marquis trick back when we get home. And he goes, I got lots more. And I was like, you're either flirting or something else is going on here. Like,
Yeah, there's some
very,
sexual
very
tension in that moment. I
very
was
playful.
there for it.
And Chakotay at the con as well. Obviously, Paris was indisposed. Someone had to take it
Oh
over.
yeah, Paris is, and Stoddy was dead in episode 1. So
So talking about Paris being indisposed, that's an interesting part. So we saw an episode similar to this in Hard Time, where they're messing with somebody's memory, but in that case it was a lot more of a post traumatic stress disorder where O'Brien wasn't able to perform his duties because of that. Now we have Paris who wouldn't be effective having to relive this every day and eventually would take its toll on him and things like that. It winds up being such a minor part of the episode. It's not really the focus. I guess in order to give everybody their fair shake, they couldn't really dive too deep into it. But maybe this episode trusts that the viewer kind of already knows that from the Star Trek universe and understands that, hey, we've been here before. We're taking it in a different direction now. We're combining a couple of different, your whodunit shows with Data and a little bit from Deep Space Nine and drawing it all together here. I thought this episode treated the viewer as being really read up on Star Trek and smart enough to just be along for the ride without having to really get too mired down.
I think they do some good steps here, like to set that up, because I mean, them being in the Delta Quadrant now this has no effect on the plot. Like them being 70,000 light years, that's irrelevant to kind of this plot. So they can treat it as though they can do the setup. So Neelix is there to set up where they are. He's the stranger in the strange land, like saying, oh yeah, this is the new Mari. He's explaining where they are. You get the broad strokes of the Civil War, and you kind of get a familiar plot, which is a whodunit, with a little bit of a sci-fi twist, which I thought, they definitely do a good job of explaining the steps as they go to someone. Like, let's say my wife was to watch this episode, she wouldn't feel lost or out of context, because she might go, why has that man got funny ears, but like, and why these people got strange heads, but that's immaterial. This plot could be kind of from anything.
This is you're right. This is a really good entry point episode for Voyager, and I think for Star Trek. I would show this to my wife. Sure. Great point.
So the last 10, 15 minutes, they do a lot with breadcrumbs too. They keep the viewer engaged. In the mind meld scene, they do a couple snap zooms on moments or pictures that you're supposed to recognize as important to the plot. We get the code at the bottom and stuff like that. And then when they send them over in the shuttlecraft, we have the comm call between Paris and Tuvok, so the audience knows that this is some kind of setup, but we don't know what's going to happen. And then when Tuvok's got it all figured out and he brings them down to the planet, so the audience knows, all right, here's the reveal. They're going to be guessing who did it. Is it the minister? Is it the other guy? Is it the wife, maybe? And so they have enough there. Again, the comparison to Dax, where it's like they keep arguing the same points. Is it one person or two? There's no build up. There's no guessing game. And then they give you like a big twist with, oh, actually, Curzon was with her at the end. But that it feels kind of unearned because there's no build up to it. It's just kind of thrown out there. And in this case, they have several different storylines that build toward that. And so I think they did a good job with holding the tension at the end.
How about we go on to our best and I need to get an audio sting for this. Best and worst moments, gentlemen, please.
I'll work on one.
Okay, Dan then.
I shouted out during the episode. I love the line that Stimpy talking about the cigarettes. Maybe I kill myself slowly because I don't have the courage to do it quickly. I want more of that. Just take a risk, stand out a little bit, Star Trek, and it's all right. It's okay. And this time it succeeded. It could have just as easily failed. It could have been cheesy, but I was eating it up. I love that part. Least favorite, it's tough to point out. I think things got a little bit too hurried when we had our shuttlecraft gambit, their little Corbomite maneuver. And partially, I guess, because we're all kind of riffing on it and watching it together. But I found that a little bit hard to follow. And I understand they wanted to quicken up the pace to add a little bit of tension and act like things were all breaking loose here, but um, maybe they were just rushing because it was the end of the episode and they had to pull things to a close. But it just seemed a little bit too quick there. So,
Auto.
Go ahead. I'm locked
Okay.
in. I know,
Okay.
so.
Okay. I think my favorite moment. It's hard to say. I think just generally how the episode opens. Just that cold. You immediately start the episode and go, oh, something different's happening here. Like we've not got our traditional captain's log, or we've not got the usual sort of like crewmen walking.
It's a Gothic mansion intro because you have the storm outside and the black and white and the.
Yeah, so it's a shocking entry, and you know that you're in for something different. And so I think my best moment is just sort of like the opening to the episode and seeing, okay, you get to see Paris being a bit of a sleazebag, but you do get him to do something rather shocking, and it looked like it was probably like a lot of fun for the actors, and I think everyone making this episode seemed to have a bit of a smile, a bit of energy to them, and sort of like a lot of ways they had fun with this episode. My worst moment, probably the dog. Scrawny little dog like reveals at the end of the episode trying to hump the guy's leg or whatever it was trying to do. It's like, oh, he knows you. No, he's just very friendly. This isn't really evidence.
They should have had a flashback moment where he was making out with a dog.
This is our sister race. These are the new Mary.
No, I don't think they should have, Dan. I don't think that at all.
So no, just the kind of the chain of the evidence was very much like, it was very circumstantial, like Tuvok turning around and saying, well, I've read his mind, and by the way, this dog's very excited, was sort of a bit circumstantial, and all of a sudden the bad guy kind of like goes, oh, I have to leave all of a sudden. It was a bit like, okay, this is very Agatha Christie.
Well, it was cliched. It absolutely was, but they knew that, and they leaned into it. So.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you can definitely see them trying to sort of go like, we're going to have some goofy fun here for our 7th episode ever. So I think it's different. Like if they're going to go full bore with it, do that in like season 7 and say like, yeah, we're going to have a film noir episode. Like we're going to do the Subspace Rhapsody of Strange New World. But yeah, they're kind of half and half here, and I kind of think I wish they'd either committed one way or the other. But yeah, I'd say it's probably my worst moment is the dog. Best is the opening, worst is the dog.
So how well do you remember Bride of Chaotica, which I think is season 5?
We watched that fairly recently, but yeah, go on.
Well, we'll get to it before too long, because I remember watching it recently and thinking, this is the Subspace Rhapsody Voyager. This is about as far as they're willing to push into absurdity, but still keep it tethered to sci-fi. So I just found that. We'll get to that later. I guess for my best, I'll go with that scene on the bridge when they're under attack and Chakotay gets to do his Maquis maneuver. They do the super cliche, B'Elanna, you remember the thing we did on that one planet, and
they do that in Discovery recently as well with Burnham and Booker. They say, "Oh, do you remember Terrestrial 5?" Yeah, it's very cliche.
Yeah. And then Janeway consults Tuvok at the end of the scene. She consults with Neelix and like Dan said at the time, using everything at her disposal is a good point guard. Like she doesn't need to solve anything. She needs to delegate the task to make sure her professionals solve things and it works out. My least favorite. I'll do my memory alpha pull of the episode. Jerry Taylor did not approve of Michael Pillar's work on the installment. She instead felt that the episode was styled too much like a 1940s American film noir production, especially considering the series for which the episode was written promised that its settings would be far from Earth. Quote, it has suburban housewives, dogs, smoking, and people talking like they came out of a Raymond Chandler novel. That seems to me not to be the right thing conceptually, although I think there was a lot of fun to be had in the episode. That's where I'm at. It was a lot of fun, and sometimes when they leaned into it, I did, have a genuine chuckle. But that's not really what I want in my Star Trek, especially for Voyager. If it was a holodeck episode, maybe, but the fact that these aliens are supposed to be like that in real life is just a little bit of a bridge
It's
too
the gangster
far.
planet from Piece of the Action. They're all they read a cult novel from like the 1940s, transported through to the Delta Quadrant. That's their entire society.
Mm-hmm. Hodgkin's law of parallel planetary development. That's
that's
stars.
the one. But instead of landing in the monkeys, it landed in the birds. I thought of another bit I liked. Just speaking of your Chakotay moment, I really liked the amount of this thing with Voyager over sort of early DS9 and TNG is that there's a lot more effects work. Like, we get a good battle between the Numeri and the Voyager. You know, you see all the phasers popping off, and you know, you even get the tractor beam on the shuttle. They put a lot more work into VFX, and that was nice to see a little bit. When I was a kid, I lived for those moments. I was the kid that had the starships were like, you know, playing with between them. And loved the space battles. So that would have been the bit where I woke up and went, oh, that bit, and then when they went back to the plot, I fell asleep again. But that's just me. That was 10-year-old. How old? What was this? 19?
No, it was great. The little short, the staccato machine gun laser phaser fire is different than your normal space battle stuff. So it was good.
That's really good. Okay, time to go on.
Oh, hold on. I thought of another good one. Since you get two, I get two.
Okay.
And I'll steal the British slang, which I had to look up after you mentioned it. The gormless look on the Numeri's face when she's talking to him through the comm, and she's like, "We've got 40 tons of check your sensors," and he goes, "Oh," and he looks in leans in to check the sensors. It was like it was slapstick, but it was funny.
Real good. Dan, you got a second one? You're allowed a second. We're all having seconds today.
No second course for me.
Okay, let's go on to our. Why did I say that weird? Let's go on to. I'm not feeling well. Leave me alone. Ratings.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5. Associational rating norm -3.
That's much too low a rating.
It's much
I'm
lower.
accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Brian. Okay. Okay. I have so many people who don't watch the Twilight
We're
Zone
gluten
reviews.
free on this
series.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I do have one. However, I will yield the floor. Since Stars is not here, I'll yield the floor if you do have one.
I have two.
Ooh.
Okay, Mr. Klingon, calm down.
So I'm going to. So the obvious one to me, as we were watching, would be how many 24th century Chesterfields.
A little inside, but I'll allow it.
A little inside, but instead I got completely blown away by this that came up later in the episode. So the rating this week will be how many fine, dispassionate Vulcan wives out of 10.
That was my favorite moment from her. I'm like, okay, she's not just a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, she had a bit of character. Go on, Dan. You get the pride of first place.
I'm bumping it up to 8. 8 fine, dispassionate Vulcan wives. This was really fun. Just a romp, just really well executed. I ate all the cheese up with a spoon. It was so soft and just
some melted cheese.
I camembert all these puns.
I got a little bit of everybody at their best, which is what I want in the ensemble cast. Like Idle, you said the VFX shots were great. Yep. Yeah, as a kid, you had to go to the movies to see this sort of thing when we were, watching Voyager on TV, and this was every week you just got the absolute best. I remember in high school trying to wrestle with the rudimentary computer graphics that we could do, and it took an entire day to just render like a single asteroid that looked like crap, and so being able to just see what they could bring to the screen, and the fact that they did this every single week, just fantastic. Yeah, I could say more great things about the episode, but it obviously didn't go anywhere. It's just a character piece and gives people something to do and something to look at, and that's fine. So I can't give it any more credit than that. But what a great 44 minutes.
Auto.
Yeah, I'm pretty close with you on that. I think I'm gonna go 7.8. Fine stoic Vulcan housewives out of 10. I definitely appreciated it more on this watch. Like I say, with the Twilight Zone series we've done and the Trek and stuff, we've become trained to look for certain things on screen, performances, dialogue, and direction. And this did stand out, well, very clearly from the film noir styling, but then just like we said, the minute-long shot with Cass and Doctor, and they did a lot. But, ultimately, what I remember is the cheesiness of that dramatic housewife. I remember the goofy dog, the blow-dried chihuahua, and it's a little much for me. I think if they'd have gone way over the top, like Bride of Chaotica, Take Me Out to the Holosuite style, I might have enjoyed it more. Um, but it was ambitious for them to try to blend as many Cylons as they did, and it landed more often than not. So I think it's a much better episode than I remember, but not one of the greats. And I think I'll still have a little bit of that odd taste in my mouth. So 7.8.
Will beat.
I'll go with this. I'll go 7.5. I'll go. I'll go slightly lower. This, yeah, like you say, this was a lot of fun. We kind of got a little bit of everyone. This is what people sort of complain about when they look at other Star Trek shows and they say like, oh, I want an ensemble cast. I want to see everyone have their roles, and like, yeah, and the risk of that is that some people will just get 2 or 3 lines. But I feel like this episode did the opposite of that. Not everyone, the lines that everyone had were either relevant to the plot or expanded their character. Even sort of Chakotay and B'Elanna's cheesy little maneuver still did something for the plot and was quite good, and it was engaging. So yeah, the film noir was like you say, a spoonful too much cheese for me maybe, and yeah, like you say, you either lean into it or you don't. But I still had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I think I'm surprised because I enjoyed it a lot more than I think. I think there is a difference between, in my head, like early DS9 and early Voyager. I think early Voyager definitely sticks the landing more than early DS9 does. So, you know, they come out a little bit more fully formed, although Paris, like we mentioned, Paris, like he is a little bit the sleazebag now, but he does have those moments later on. I think he grows more than the producers intended him to do. There is some unexpected character growth that they wanted in their syndicated show, and that just will not do. So yeah, 7.5 from me.
Paris is really interesting because, like I said, sometimes he's a sleazy ex-con, and sometimes he's a real empathetic, smart character, and they flip-flop back and forth a little too much rather than a sustained arc. So, but it is interesting because, like, everyone's big complaint is the Maquis assimilate like that, and it's true. So the only bad boy you have left on the whole show is Paris. So someone's got to add a little friction.
I'm kind of interested when we get to learning curve as well, because I think that's the sort of the last bastion of Maquis resistance on the ship. But okay, so that gives us a 7.8 for that episode. Where do we put that? That is, we rank actually exact same as The Cloud, which we reviewed. I think it was the last Voyager episode we reviewed.
Really? Do I give that like a 9.7? So how did we end up with
I think I trashed that. Maybe I trashed it. Let me have a look. The Cloud. Who was that? I think that was you and me. Yeah, that was you and me. I gave it a 6.5. You gave it a 9.5. We had very different expectations on that.
That's a good one.
And same as the Emissary. We rated the same as the DS9 opening. So yeah, that's where that sits. Thank you everyone for watching. If you are joining our stream, night. We'll see you next time. If you're watching us on YouTube, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with something. I think we're still deciding on. We might be doing something. We might be going off the beaten path soon, or we might not. We'll see. Stay tuned for that. As always, have a look on our channel for all our fun stuff, like our Twilight Zone reviews. For our other things, we've got a charity show coming up as well soon. Oh no, that'll probably be in the past now when this goes out. But hey,
I was going to say you could plug that, but by the time people see it on YouTube, we'll all be long dead and buried. So
the charity show for the year after. So you know
that's right.
Yes, that's
plug 2025's charity show.
Come look at the award show or something like that. Who knows? Oh, the joys of scheduling stuff weeks in advance. But yeah, go check all the other stuff we've been doing. We're doing games and Star Trek, WWE, and all that kind of stuff. And some sarcastic Vulcan salutes. And
you're getting played off.
Yep. Getting played off. Everyone, thank you for coming. We'll see you next time. Live long and prosper. Ta-ra.